we're going. So which one did we start with? What do you want to
Well,
talk
my
about?
granny started out when she was little, you know.
Oh yeah, about the hardships of Little Orleans, about not having electricity or.
Well, you kids wouldn't know what it was like
Right,
unless you
sure.
lived through it. But we, it was that was our way of living. That was
Yeah.
it. But anyway,
So it was all candles, I take it then?
no, we had
Gas lamps?
lamps that we used kerosene in, like this
Right
one up
there is
here.
one that her daddy used.
Huh.
And when we did our homework, we had to use a kerosene lamp.
Wow.
We had no electricity, so we had no refrigeration. We had a cave that was was underground, and then what they called a smokehouse that they used when they butchered,
Uh-huh.
and they didn't have refrigeration, so they smoked their meat or salted it,
Right.
and that would keep it. And they'd hang it from the ceiling, and it would keep, until a certain at the time till it got too warm or something.
Right.
And by that time it would be gone, and then we'd butcher again in the fall. But we had chickens, and we raised our own pork,
Uh-huh.
and so
Well, how long of a walk was it to school? I remember hearing that you had a hell of a walk.
I walked about a mile each day, no matter what the weather was like. And back then we used to get real deep snows,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be 3 feet of snow with a crust on it.
Right.
And you could, we'd have to put wrap stuff around our boots
Mm-hmm.
to keep you from, so you could even walk.
Yeah.
And there was a real steep place that I had to go down over to get to where I met the bus. And the trackmen were there about the same time starting to work as I was going to school. And they come up many times and would help me down over there to keep me from going down over a real steep embankment into where I guess it was the creek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Creek before it got into the river. Yeah, 15-mile creek. So, and I hardly missed a day of school. I got hit by a car when I was 16.
Yeah, Mom had said that to me. What
And,
happened then? How did that happen?
Well, we were supposed to go to a skating party. And my sister-in-law, Irene, she wasn't my sister-in-law then, but she met my brother through coming home from school with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to, what do they call that up in LaVale?
Moonglow, I think.
Moonglow, I think. It was a skating rink.
Yeah, Moonglow.
And we were going up there, and the bus driver that was driving our school bus was going to take the whole bus load of kids up. So we get out at my cousin's house on the highway, and we were going to stay with her all night so we could go. So I got off the school bus, and a guy from Canada was going about 70 miles an hour, and he said he didn't know that you had to stop for a school bus. And it was pouring the rain down, and when he just sort of sideswiped me just enough that it threw me up in the air, and I came back and hit his car, and then it threw me back up again, and I landed in the middle of the highway.
Wow.
And I had shoes we used to wear, they called them Oxfords then, that had laces laced up tight on your ankle, and that impact was so hard that it knocked both of my shoes off.
Did it really? Well, did you have any broken bones or what?
No.
Nothing?
No, I was about half dazed, but the guys came from, it was in front of, it was called the Midway, a restaurant, and some guys came to help pick me up or get me off the highway. And they said the first thing I said is that I broke I broke my fingernails.
Not even worried about your shoes? Or
And I didn't even know my shoes were gone.
Wow.
But I was really stoved up. I mean, swollen and black and blue and all that. But I went to school. I hated to miss school, and I went back to school before I should have gone back because my knee was all swollen, and but I hobbled, and they would let me out 5 minutes early from out of the classroom at the end of the school day, so I could get down the steps
In time.
before the herd came down. You know, the main.
Well,
bunch
what
of
school
kids.
was it that you went to then?
Well, I went to grade school in a one-room school
Wow.
for 3 years.
What grades was in there then?
It was a one-room school, which the building is still standing, and people have renovated and built on. And there was all 8 grades and one schoolroom,
Wow.
and you could hear a pin drop in there when the teacher was teaching. Like, he'd be teaching the first grade, then he would give them some,
Something to do.
book work to do, and then it'd be second, third, and he had to teach. But he might have had like first and second together, and then third and fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. And I went to one-room school for 3 years, and then I went started Piney Plains, which was out near the highway, about 7 miles. The 4th through the 8th. Then I went from then to Flintstone for the next 4 years.
Okay.
Graduated from high school there.
Well, we always hear Pap's little did I know story about how you two met, but let's hear the other side of it. Let's hear where you were, what you were doing, because we know he was hunting with Elmo. But
He was hunting.
were you?
I was, let's see, I was already out of school. I was working. I started at the B&O YMCA, which is now torn down, and they built a new one. I worked there from 48. Well, I only worked there maybe 6 months. What you had was all the railroaders come in there to eat. So I worked there, and I had gone to Indiana. I had a sister, and then this aunt and uncle. I had 2 aunts, 2 uncles, a sister that lived in Gary, Indiana. So I went out there for, I guess, a week or something like that. And when I came back, my aunt gave me gifts to bring back to my mom and to my mom's sister. And my mom's sister's where John was hunting. So Irene, who was still not my sister-in-law, she was dating my brother, she and I said, let's go up and my aunt was a real good cook, and back years ago they gave her the name Cook, and I never thought anything about it, but she was my Aunt Cook. So I said, will you go up with me? Said, we'll take her gift up to her. So when we got up there, I didn't even know she had any company, which, he tells a different story. Well,
She knew he says you knew he was there, and that's why you went up.
No, I didn't know it
Big
either.
black shiny car.
But anyway, I innocently went in with
39 Plymouth.
the
bubble
gift
dances.
for my aunt. No ad-libbing. And he was there, and this Elmo and my cousin Roy, who he went down with, and they were all eating supper. And so I went in, Irene and I went in and was talking to my grandma, McDonald, while they ate. And then, I gave Aunt Cook her gift, and we went back home. So in the meantime, I think Roy had a load in his car, and somehow, I don't know how it came about, that Irene and I rode with John and Elmo. So that's when I first met him.
Oh, so you met him, but was there anything said? I mean,
No,
did you
actually-
ask if you'd
No,
like to go
because-
on a date that first time, or did it take a while?
No, I asked her. I'm pretty sure that
I think he asked me if he could
I
see me
asked
again.
her.
That day, the same
that
day?
they
That
had a
night.
carload, and I said, we'll take you to Cumberland.
I don't know
We'll
how
go.
it came about, but anyway.
I'm pretty sure we said, we'll take you to Cumberland. In the meantime, I asked her for a date, and that started it. That started the whole show. But also, she didn't get into the part about water. How they didn't
Oh,
have
we didn't
running
have
water.
running water, of course, either. No electricity. You
So a
couldn't.
well, I take it.
So,
is what-
well,
what
we
was-
had a well, but we couldn't use that water we didn't use that water for drinking. Because it would go dry real easy, too. So we had to carry our water from, how many how far would you say it was down to Uncle Johnny's?
I'll
Or our
guarantee you.
grandma it was.
I'll
Then.
guarantee it was the length of a football field. They had to carry it two
Well,
buckets at a time.
we'd get 2 buckets of about 5 gallons. No, wouldn't be 5 gallons.
Be a couple gallon.
Couple gallon buckets.
Huh.
And we would go down, and Grandpap and Grandma had a real good well, and we'd pump it and carry it home. And when that's what we used for drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a well, and when it had water in it, we would use that for
Wash
washing
clothes.
clothes.
Oh, okay.
So, what was I going to say? Well, when that well would go dry, we didn't want to use all that water out of the drinking water
Right.
well. So we would, I guess it was about a mile up close to where my aunt lived,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a spring down in a hollow,
Mhm.
and we would pack up all of our clothes, sheets, and all that kind of stuff, everything that was dirty, and we'd have kids would have wagons, like Red Rider wagons.
Mhm.
Back then they were real popular,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd put them in these wagons, and we'd go up and we'd build a wood fire under an iron kettle.
Mm-hmm.
And anything like white clothes, they would always boil the white clothes.
Right.
And so we'd wash the white clothes first, and then like light colored and down till you got, because you couldn't change water like we do today.
Right.
And put up lines. We had lines strung up, and we'd take all day, and we'd wash all of our clothes, hang them up. And then a lot of times at lunchtime, I'd go down. It was time for the mail to come. The mail train. I'd walk down to the store to get the mail. They had a little post office, and go back up, and we'd stay there till the clothes dried. We'd fold the clothes and pack them back in the wagon and go home.
Wow.
And we'd take
Process.
take a lunch with us to eat at lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
Eat breakfast, then we'd eat supper after we go back home.
Well, now you can just throw them in a washer, walk
Oh.
away, and come back later.
And we used a washboard.
Right.
A lot of people don't know what a washboard is, but that's how we scrubbed the clothes.
Didn't Pap use that as an instrument in his band, Little Rotten Johnny and the Seat Pickers?
Little Johnny, Rotten Johnny
But
in his seat.
Then besides my mother washing all of our clothes by hand to make some extra money, she washed for the people that had the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my father worked for them. They not only had a grocery store, but they had feed for animals. They had fertilizer
So it's
for
kind of
gardens, and like an all around.
Right,
and
one-stop shop.
They had the shoes, boots, and
Good old country
material.
general
They
store,
had material that the ladies would buy to make clothes for the kids.
Huh.
Sold it by the yard.
So she did their laundry too. She did their clothes.
And she did their clothes, washed them, dried them, and ironed them, and then we'd take them back to him.
Huh.
And her daddy worked there with.
And he worked there. Plus they had people would bring from out in the lumber mills. They'd make cross ties, and they'd bring them in there, and that was like a depot.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd back up a certain amount of box cars, and they would load these. He'd help to unload them from the trucks,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd stack them. And then he knew pretty much as the inspector did about. They had to inspect them to see what grade, if there was any
Mm-hmm.
fault in them or anything. And then maybe once a month there'd be what they would call an inspector.
Mm-hmm.
And before they would ship them out, they all had to be inspected by him, so they would know how much they were worth, I guess.
Right. Well, I want to get back to. Do you remember where you went on your first date?
Oh God.
Oh Lord, I don't
Well,
know.
what did you, whenever
Well,
you did
back
start
then
dating,
you
what
didn't-
was, what did you used to do? Movies, dancing, what?
Most we went to was old square dances.
Square dancing?
Old square dances.
We went square dancing.
Where? Where was that?
Well, in the National Guard Armory here in Cumberland.
We
Uh,
went, well, back then they used to have drive-in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to drive-in theaters,
Yeah.
some.
Yeah.
And then we also went out here to what was now the KSC, or was what they call Minky's.
It was Minky's then.
And that's where all the country people came there, and we'd go to square dancing. Boy, we did a lot of. We went to a lot of square dances back then. That's what was the big thing back then, was square
dancing. Now, did you ever go hunting with him?
No.
Did he ever take you hunting?
No, she
He just
I
brought
was
home
never
the meat
interested in guns as much as I was around them
Yeah.
or hunting. But when I was home, we used to set box traps, we called them. And you would cut an apple in pieces and put them in a box, and it would have like a lid that tilted up.
Yeah.
And you put a stick under it, and the rabbit would go in, and when he'd go in to get the apple, the lid would drop down, and then we'd catch the rabbit, and we would eat those rabbits.
You know, what was the other story I wanted you to tell? Oh, tell the story about the bacon bits story about him. Where you were and what that
What
Well,
was your dad's birthday?
tell that what that was
We
about.
had an Italian, a big Italian dinner at the Holiday Inn, and they had these singers come in from, I don't know, maybe New
From
York,
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that bunch that came in. One lady her mother was from my mother's hometown. That was the head of all this.
Oh, she was from Frozen Hill?
Yeah.
Really?
No, I don't. I think you're mixed up. I think you're talking about.
The bunch from Wheeling. They came from Pittsburgh and sang in Wheeling, but they also came to Cumberland.
Well, whoever they
Same
were.
bunch.
Anyway,
So
they were
Italian singers.
Italian entertainment. So we had this buffet. You went through and there were all kind of pastas and salad and all that, and we all ate before the entertainment. So we, your dad and mom was with us, and John and I don't remember. I think maybe just the four of us in our group. But anyway, we went through the line, got our food, and we went back to the table to eat. And John would say, "Is your, is your raviola hot? Or is this hot?" And that, whatever we had on our plate, is that hot? Is yours hot? I said, "No, mine isn't hot."
You mean hot, like temperature-wise?
Yeah, spicy wise.
Okay.
Red pepper.
And I said, "No." I said, "Mine isn't." And
I broke out in a
he
sweat.
was sweating
and
and kept ordering all these
bottles of wine.
bottles
Your
of
dad says,
wine.
"What the hell's he doing drinking?" He said he's going to drink another bottle of wine. And
What happened? He thought he was putting bacon bits on his stuff, and it was hot pepper.
red peppers. Jeez, poor.
So about the time, well, we finished. I don't know if you went back and got more food.
I kept asking you. I said, "Give me a taste of yours."
No, but I think you might have went back and got more food. Because or maybe tried to eat it, and he was sweating and everything. So, anyway, then the entertainment was going to start after everybody get done eating. Well, he was sitting there and he started complaining.
I got the bellyache,
He,
the cramps.
he said, "Oh, I don't feel good." He said, "We're going to have to go home." I said, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "This is the best part of it. We got to leave."
So you missed the entertainment
Missed the
completely, huh?
entertainment.
Ah, I said, I might as well brought one of the kids and had to take the kid home because it was bad.
Or had the bellyache.
I had a bellyache. I had to take an adult back home, so I missed all the entertainment.
Oh,
Well, what about, Mom had told me a story about you had gotten drunk somewhere, out at the Cessnas maybe, and had to stay overnight or locked your keys in your car or something happened and Granny wasn't too happy with you.
Oh,
What
I think that's the time we went out to Beans Cove to a dance,
Is that where it was?
and
go and tell him. Go and
and
tell
so anyway, we the dance was over, and we all went outside to get in our. Rosemary,
Well-
friend, and Chauncey was with us.
Oh, that's another time.
Oh, is that another story?
We're not. It wasn't the night that you drank the beer with me. You said you was going to drink one.
No, we're not talking about that.
You're going to drink one-on-one with me.
Yeah, no.
And stop the car. What?
Oh, well,
Great.
save that
Now
one.
wait a minute.
Yeah,
See,
say
I
it.
told you he'd interrupt me.
Save that one. All right, we're
So
talking
anyway-
about you're out Beans Cove.
Yeah, but see, I don't think that's a very good thing to say either.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, let it fly. Come on.
Well, anyway, we went out to the truck. We was in a pickup truck.
4 of us.
Because it was in the wintertime and it was, the weather was cold and
It was raining
rainy
and
and
muddy.
So he went to get the truck, right? So somehow we was behind him, or he was going to bring the truck
I
out.
want to bring it out. It was all muddy.
So we wouldn't have to walk back in there where it was muddy. Well, number one, there was a bathroom in where we just walked out of the hall. Well, he decided he had to go to the bathroom, so he went to the bathroom. And when he shut the door,
I got in and started up the truck.
started up the truck, and
Get out.
and was gonna go to the bathroom, So when he went to open up the door was locked,
And the car was running.
and
Yeah.
the truck was running. So he had extra keys, but had them hid underneath the middle of the bottom, underneath the truck. So, of course,
Perhaps a
he
little
was.
bit dingy.
Gloria, did you have some drinks?
I think he had a few more than he needed. So he didn't know what he was going to do. Said, "Well, I got keys underneath here." So he was dressed pretty nice to went to the dance, and so finally he tried to get in there and get them, and he was full. He was muddy and
I
wet.
crawled up under the truck to get the key where I had it.
But I think though another guy had to end up getting it.
No, he helped. He shined a flashlight while
Oh, well,
one of
anyway,
the Cessnas shined a flashlight.
he get out. Well, we didn't know how it happened
Right.
till later, but that's how it happened. So we all were crunched in, the 4 of us in
In
that truck. So
And he's covered in mud.
and and I said I feel like it's something wet. I said I feel like here he was. He was all full of mud from being underneath the truck.
We were into my underwear. That was mud.
Oh.
And he came home and he was mud all the way through.
Oh.
But I thought I could have killed him.
Okay, hold on. All right, so what was the other one you wanted to tell Pat?
Well, she don't want to hear that one.
Well, that's okay. This isn't going to go
went
outside the
square deal.
family. Come
Well,
on.
when I first, but it wasn't fair for her. It was just starting. But then I had been drinking every time we'd go out. I'd get pretty well pickled.
On what?
And
What did you drink? Beer?
Mostly beer when
Beer?
we go to them.
One after the other. I'd order Coke. I was ordering Pepsi and he was ordering beer. So I got aggravated with him. So I told the waitress, I said, okay, from now on when you bring him a beer, you bring me one. Well, I never drank before, nothing.
I loved it.
Never drank even coffee. And so he,
So what happened?
well, I didn't drink. I might have had 1 beer or maybe 2 beers at the most because I never drank before in my life. So
The dance
we
was
started
over.
to leave. So the dance was over and we started to leave.
There was a little bit left in her glass. I says, "Come on." She said, "Where did I finish this?" I
No,
said,
he said, well, I don't know what he said. Anything? Is it almost over?
No.
Finished?
They just started.
No, I just started a new one.
So
So you got to finish this story.
He said, you better say, now he tells me this, that he said that he told me I better not drink the rest of that.
I told her. She said, "Wait, I'm gonna finish this." I said. She said, "No."
He said you'll get sick. I said, it takes a crack to turn my stomach.
"Yeah."
Well,
She's pretty well feeling it, didn't she?
well, anyway, that was the first, and
So we
So-
took her and got her some coffee.
So then I never drank coffee before either. So we left there and I started feeling wheezy, you know.
Mhm.
So they said, "Well, we'll stop and get you a cup of coffee." There used to be a place called Murphy's One Stop.
Mhm.
So we stopped there and they got that coffee. Well, that coffee, I hated coffee.
It didn't help.
I never drank coffee before, and it was black coffee. And I drank that, and then we started on to the highway, and I thought, oh boy. I told him, I said, stop the car. Oh, you talk about sick.
Did you
Stop
get
the
sick?
car. Bleh.
Oh, I got sick as a
Hey,
dog.
yeah, we're a little farther down the road. Oh, stop.
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
How many times did you stop?
Oh, boy.
Now, John, you see what I mean? He stretches things. I got sick one time. That was enough. But anyway,
well,
I never tried to keep up with him anymore because I never really cared for even the taste of it much less.
Yeah. Well, what about, isn't there a story about you getting drunk out at the Cessnas and sleeping out there, or you both slept out there one night after a party or a dance or something?
no, that was probably the one she told about there
Okay.
when we went to the dance.
When you went to the
The
dance.
dance
Okay.
But then Granny one time, without me, did go put on a little show at her brother's one.
Oh, now we're not talking
Well, we're
about.
talking about that.
No, we're not talking about that. That
All
was
right. Well, you can't build up and not deliver. Let's hear it. Come on.
No.
You know about all the
I wasn't
stuff
there.
that we run
I
around and
wasn't
do.
there.
All right.
So keep your mouth shut.
So
He
we'll
wasn't
see.
here. It
Well, what
wasn't-
about him? And
it
you, I
wasn't
know
any
you have
big
plenty.
story. It
I know
wasn't
you
no
have
big
plenty
story.
about him. What else can you think of that where he made a jackass?
Well,
Oh.
not too much. Not too much after that. What
Well,
we did-
it used to be, he was at the reserve, you know, he was in the guard and the reserve. Well, that was, they always had booze after the beer mostly. After the meeting, they had to drink. So he would come home, and more than one time he'd get sick on his stomach. And so the kids would say, what's Mark Dad? What's Mark Daddy? I said, oh, he don't feel good. He don't feel good.
He's
You know,
got
I'd
the
make
flu.
up, he just don't feel good. So I'd make up excuses for him. So this one time he came home, and he would, you know, and he said, what's Mary's dad? I said, he's drunk. That was it. I never covered up for him no more.
I said, Daddy or Mommy, what's drunk mean?
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm trying to think. What else? What else did we talk about?
Well, you know, though, then there's a better side of the life too. That whenever your mother and John were little,
Yeah, did you ever catch
we
them
used to
drinking or
always.
anything
Oh
like
no!
that?
Well, they tried to have parties here at the house once in a while.
Oh,
They'd
boy.
say, you know, there was only going to be so many. This one time, they said there ain't going to be so many, just a couple girls or whatever. And one time, they one of them went through a window, didn't he?
Broke the glass in the storm door there. I'm pretty sure.
No, I think it was a window. Well, anyway, it was broken glass of some type. But they didn't get into it too much because they knew they couldn't get away with it with us.
Yeah.
Not too much.
But these kids were supposed to have come. You know how it is from your high school days. If one kid might be going to have a party and they're expecting a few kids, and if before you know it, it's crashed.
Snowballs.
the word would get around to all
And
the
so
kids.
there was a lot more kids here than what was supposed to be here.
Yeah.
But I think that's any really time I remember
Yeah.
that anything ever happened.
Huh.
But then again, too, though, talking the brighter side, whenever your mother and John and Teresa were little, we used to get down the country and go to the river a good bit, swimming in the river.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Ocean City, we went to Blackwater Falls, and we went
Hershey
to
Park.
and got up to Hershey Park, and also we did do things together as a family that
Yeah.
we did a whole lot together with, like that,
Huh.
in that generality. And then as we did, then that what started then was it went from there to once our kids got up and got through school, John got through college and left, and your mother went to work, and then we talked about her getting married, and then when you guys started coming along, the greatest things that started then was we went to a lot of ball games.
Yeah.
Starting you guys from clearly back to time when you was probably in what you call Pee Wee
Pee
lived.
Wees. Yep.
From
Well,
Pee
from
Wee
Pee
lived
Wee's up, we went to many ball
Pee
games.
Wees to college.
From
all the way
starting
through.
from David,
Mm-hmm.
4 boys, we had a lot of ball games.
Well, were there any
Lots
good
of-
stories you can remember from any games? I think I'm trying to think if anybody ever did anything
Let
funny
me
like
think.
crap themselves at a game or something like that.
Well, I
bet.
did that. We was at Camden Yards and I forget whether your mother had extra tickets, and we called Benny to come along, Uncle Ben, and Uncle Ben. You know how you're leaving the ball game, and you're going up them steps,
Mhm.
and as you're going up them steps, well, I kind of held it all the time. We was sitting in there around all them people, so I thought, well,
Famous last
yeah.
word.
I tried.
so
to
I
help.
thought I'll hold it, but when I was going up the steps, I thought, well, this ain't too bad to let her go, so I'm going up them steps and I eased it out, nice. And Uncle Ben was behind me, and you'd have to let Uncle Ben tell you his end of the story, how that baby went back in there and just,
Lingered.
it just laid in the air, and
That's a nice story to tell.
but that's the other time was the one that was really something though was whenever we went to Wheeling, West Virginia. Me, and I think it was Teresa's in-laws, because Teresa's father-in-law liked Willie Nelson,
Mhm.
and in Wheeling, West Virginia, in a movie theater, I think there was a movie, and then Willie was entertainment in this movie theater. And buddy, I mean, she built up on me in that movie theater big time, And so we're walking down the street.
People's going to be listening to this.
Well, he wants to hear it. We're walking down the street, and there's all these people in back of me, and then I thought, well, I just let all my Teresa's in-laws and Millie, I just slowed up a little bit, So then I kind of eased everything out, and I heard a lady say back, she says, oh dear, she says, there must be someone ill up there. I mean, it was a doozy.
Oh.
And that was in Italy when Annie and I were walking down the street going to Mass, I think.
Oh,
And I eased one out there going to Mass that morning, and these 3 guys was behind me, and they was punching each other, blaming one another. Say, "Chi fatta questa scureggia?" And they're pounding on each other, blaming each other.
Oh gosh.
To know, but back then they didn't have the antibiotics they have now.
Well, I'll tell you how Mom and Daddy got.
Are we on now?
Yeah, we're on, but look at me. I'm just doing different angles, so don't even look at the camera. Just
Yeah.
talk to me then.
Well, when how my mom and dad got together was when my mom was a teenager. She would go help my father's was married to, she was a kid. She was a teenager. He was married to a lady by the name of, her maiden name was Smith.
Mhm.
And they had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, they had 6 children.
Wow.
And so when the flu epidemic went through, he lost his wife, his mother-in-law, and 3 children.
So the flu would kill you back then?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Within 6 months, he lost, I think it was 3 children, his wife, and his mother-in-law. Within 6 months.
Wow.
So that left, I had 3 half-brothers.
Mhm.
Then Mom's husband, she had 6 children and was pregnant with the 7th, which is Violet.
Right.
Named Violet. And her husband got killed in the logging woods. A tree fell on him and killed him. So Daddy was about 15 years older than Mom. Like I said, she used to help his wife
Right.
at doing, taking care of the house and the kids
Mhm.
when they were little. And then, much later, then after he lost his wife and that whole family, but 3 of the boys survived. And Mom was had 6 children and was pregnant with Violet.
Wow.
and her husband got killed. I told you that. So then Mom and Daddy got married and had Benny and I. So we're the only two Martins, and the rest of the kids, my half brothers and sisters, were McDonald's.
Okay.
But see what else I wanted to tell you about Mom. Mom used to. My grandma was a midwife. Back then, you didn't have you didn't go to the hospital. You had your children at home. And my grandma was a midwife and delivered a lot of children down Little Orleans. And then Mom learned from her, and she delivered children.
Oh.
And I remember one time when my aunt lived in the next house down, and she wanted Mom to take care of her, so she came up, and you know how little our house is down there. And there was like 3 little bedrooms and a living room and a kitchen. And I remember my aunt came up, and she was in the bedroom next to that, bordered the kitchen, and never heard one peep. Mom took this basin of water and whatever she needed, she knew what she needed to have, and went in there, and they would call the country doctor, but a lot of times he wouldn't even get there till after the children were born.
Right.
And so, in fact, he wasn't there when that baby was born. But you never heard one peep or anything, and of course they never had any kind of
drugs to give them.
Or anything. And
Wow.
I remember Mom delivered that baby. But I remember also when I was just a little girl that they still had some canal boats. When the canal was full of water, and people lived in them. Like that was their home. And I remember going with Mom to this particular canal boat, and it was on the water, and in fact if the water would get high, or if it'd be a bad storm or something, they'd have a porch, or well, I guess would be what we call a deck now, but they'd have a porch all around this boat, and I remember sweeping the water off of the porches, the porch that went around the I don't remember exactly. It looked sort of like any house inside, except it was on the water.
On the water.
And that's what they use for transportation between Cumberland and Washington.
Yeah.
Well,
Wonder how long that would take.
well, now they used the canal. They used the boats to haul merchandise.
Oh yeah,
and all-
materials and everything.
materials back and forth.
Yeah.
But these people, they lived in
They lived in them.
these.
And they had lock houses where people lived.
Yeah.
Wherever the
Well,
locks are,
and
they
then
had to
my
raise
aunt
and
lived
lower
at
the
a
water.
lock house, and her husband would, when the boats would come in, you'd have to lower, and there's a certain procedure they went through. And
Some
he
of
used
the
to
old
run.
locks are
He
still
used
there.
to. They furnished the house, and then the man that lived in the house controlled the locks when the boats came through.
So you said you were talking about the doll that you got for Christmas, and
Oh yeah, for
stuff.
Christmas I said, we'd get a little something, and then candy, nuts, and oranges, and we thought we had it made. And the one year, I remember in particular that Mom had these. She would take like scraps from. They used to sell material by the yard, and she made from a hand-me-down from my older sister, one of my older sisters, doll, and she'd clean it all up and make clothes, maybe 2 or 3 outfits of clothes. And I got that for one Christmas, and I was tickled to death.
I bet.
Seeing that lamp right there, her daddy had a little wood. He was real good with woodwork. He had what they call a wood shop, and he used that lamp at night. That particular lamp right there he used that lamp right
See
there
that
to
like
do
a
his work.
reflector? He would fix it so the reflector went down on his workbench, and he would work in there at night. He made, well, the down at Mom's with the porch swing that's there, he made that and many others like it, and that was years and years and years ago.
He
And
made
that thing is still The only thing they've ever had to do is replace maybe some of the hooks
Yeah.
where the chain hooks into the hook in the
Where it
ceiling.
swung so much it almost wore completely
Where it
through.
would wear so thin that it wouldn't be safe to be on.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Let me tell you, they had to do by hand.
But
then.
he sold, he made some things and sold them. And he also repaired the shoes. Back then you didn't have a half a dozen pair of shoes. You wore shoes, and if they got almost to the place where they had a hole in the bottom, then you got what they called half soles. And Daddy used to have, they called it a last.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a thing that stood up about so high, and then it had a metal thing in shape of a shoe, and or in shape of a foot, and you would put the shoe on this thing, and then he'd replace heels and soles on people's us with us kids too.
Mm-hmm.
Shoes, instead of buying new ones, they'd re-sole them and re-heel them.
I know what I didn't ask you about that I wanted to get both of you to talk about was when you were married, where, and
I was working.
parents
where
went
was
along
it?
with it 100%, I'm sure, or
I was working. I went to automobile school after I got out of the Army for a while through the GI Bill. And one of the students in that school was named Joe Seib, S-C-I-B. So then when I was in school, then Millie and I decided to get married. That was back in 1950.
and you were how old at that time then?
Oh, I was born in 28.
20, about 21, I think.
Somewhere around 21.
20.
She was about 19, I guess. And we decided to get married. So I said to Joe, we worked together at PPG, then I worked at PPG, and I said, how about you and Katie being best man and and we're going to get married and we'll go to St. I went and got a marriage license. I always kid about it. I said that I didn't have no money and Granny bought the license. And said it was $2 for the license.
$2.
$2.
Yep.
You went down to the courthouse, I guess? is
Down
what
the
you
courthouse and got the license. And then Joe and Katie came down from Frostburg where they lived, and we went down to St. Peter's and Paul's Monastery, and the priest in there married me, and Katie and Joe was best man and best woman, and Katie and Joe was, well, you know, best man and all that. And so we got married there in St. Peter's and Paul's Church.
In the monastery? Just
Well,
so there wasn't
it was
anybody
part
else
of-
there?
it was
rectory.
Actually the rectory of
we-
the
we
monastery.
Just you four?
Yeah.
Just us four.
So you eloped to the St.
That was
Peter
it,
Paul?
right
Well,
there.
we didn't really elope. We just decided to.
Did your parents know about it though, that you were going to go and do it, or no?
Right then, they didn't know.
Yeah, they
So
did.
you came back married and said,
We
"We're
came
married."
back married, we're married.
How did they take it?
What are you going to
Fine.
say?
I remember when I was engaged to John, and
We were engaged before that.
oh, we were engaged a couple.
I went down
years.
seeing old Sam Barsky. I didn't have a lot of money. Little old Jewish fellow downtown, and got her a ring down there at Sam Barsky's.
Well, did everybody do that? Just go and get married in a little monastery, or did they have
Oh.
big weddings like people do now?
Well,
some people,
sometimes
you
they
never
did.
had big weddings much like
yeah,
you do now.
like they do now.
But we what was I going to say?
So that was the extent of me and her getting married.
Well, where did he propose to you? How did that?
We just decided to get married, you know.
So you were just
Well,
talking about it.
We went together all that
We
time.
went together a couple years.
From
Right.
48 clear up to 50.
So there was no like you get on your knee and propose anything like that.
Oh,
you were
I
just
got-
talking about it.
I got down on my knees and I says, Mildred,
Help
darling,
me up, I'm drunk.
we. I was, when I
Say,
One night I
I'm
was-
going to ask you why I'm drunk, because after I sober up,
I
I'm
said, oh my God, look what I married. What's that guy that one guy sings? He married a waitress with no front tooth. He woke up and looked at her and couldn't imagine that he married her.
He thought she was so beautiful.
Yeah, he told her how beautiful
Boy,
she
I
was.
think he had his eye on one woman, and after he got loaded, he ended up marrying this other woman, and
She was a waitress and had
They
her
have a song about it.
tooth was missing. And when he woke up and took a look at that, he couldn't understand how he got there.
So you said you did get down on your knee and propose.
I
to her
got
then.
down. I proposed to her. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, that was nice.
well, you know what I always used to say with his parents, you know, I said you had to be Catholic. You should be Catholic. You should have money, and you should
Be Italian.
Italian. And I struck out with all three of
All
them.
three.
So anyway,
But before Cindy, whenever Cindy came along, then I was working on the railroad. Whenever my sister Julia went with you get a cab, and I was working on the railroad.
we lived in the apartment we were talking about where these other people lived at different times. Julia lived there, and anyway, we were living in the apartment, and he was working cat eye, and I started getting pains during the night and all, and so I called his sister. Her husband was in the service, and
I think he was in it, sir.
she was in.
Or he might have been away, working with construction and all. I forget. But
Oh, we were living on the other. We weren't in the apartment then. We were in your mother's side.
yeah.
We had a bedroom over there.
Julia had
And we
the
lived
apartment.
with them. Julia had the apartment.
Okay.
So anyway, when I started getting sick, I called her, and what she told me, she said, if you feel like you need me, you call me. So I called her, got dressed, and we went down, and I remember standing in that front door of her apartment waiting on a cab to go to the hospital to have Cindy. And her daddy was working. We didn't have no way to let him know, so I don't think he even knew till he got home. And if I'm not mistaken,
I didn't even know you went. I went home, went to bed, and here
Well,
you had already had.
anyway, Cindy was born about 11 something, I think, that morning. So
Huh. And that would have been, what year was that? That was
51 then.
51. Yeah.
That'd been 1951. Yep.
Because Daddy was born in 48, I believe.
He was born in 48.
Yep.
He was born January.
I
48.
graduated that year.
48. Flintstone High School.
Mhm.
Yep.
How many people did you graduate with?
24.
24. I graduated with 59,
Well,
and that was 1993.
That was the biggest class that had graduated from there, but it went up into the 40s and 50s.
I
later.
graduated with 167, and right now there are 98 living. And we had a 55th class reunion. From the 50th to the 55th last year, 30 died in between the 50th to the 55th.
I figured you just didn't graduate. I never asked you about that. I didn't know if you finished out or not.
Yeah,
they
it was. Let
pushed
me
him
tell you,
through.
if it wasn't
He soft soaped the teachers. I
and
think.
the one teacher, that's a funny story though. You know, she was a real old ugly Georgia lady, but a good lady. She was really good to me. You know, and she'd say to me every time I smiled, she just couldn't get mad at me. You know, so you know, one time they had them plaster Paris piles of dung. You know. So I walked into class one day and I had one of them, and I thought, well, I just went up and pulled her chair out, set it on her chair and pushed it back in, see. And, you know, everybody's sitting there, you know, and all that. And she come walking in and pulled the chair out and looked down and said, what on earth? And I forget. She looked out and she said, John, go to the office. No, just said, John, go to the office. And that's where I met Rita's husband, Jim Rubenstein. He was in trouble, and he was sent to the office too. And
I think they saw each other more in the office than they did anyplace else.
Yeah.
That was a friendship that developed in detention, huh?
But I really did. For some reason, I had a knack at like doing Shakespeare. Wherefore art thou, and all that stuff like that. You know, and I would do all that stuff, and she would sit there and I thought I was so wonderful when I could recite, and everybody in the class is cracking up. See, because I'm laying it on, pretty heavy, and everybody else died laughing.
Oh.
And then we went into shop where they had they had drafting and all that stuff, part of this, and all the we had this real milky toast teacher. He was a shop teacher, and he said he sent the paper around to all the guys and had them write their name down, and then he was going to have everybody stand up and read their name so that they know who each one was. And there was another boy by the name of Donald Cruz, Well, then somebody put an S in front of his name when the paper went around, see? And so then we called him Fergie Balls. And old Fergie, he stood up and he says, and he read John Divico, Albert Schaefer, and he said Donald Screws. It broke up the class. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Turn it off.
So what happened now? It was
It was
where was he
called-
working?
He was a gentleman by the name of Charlie Lenneberg had sheep, and he would in the fields down there, and Daddy was like the shepherd boy, and he'd take care of the sheep.
Caretaker.
And
Shepherd boy.
shepherd boy. And so he'd take care of the sheep, feed them, and all that kind of thing. And then in the summer they would have to shear them. Is that what you call them?
Yeah.
And but anyway, they figure that he got this tick from off the sheep because he was around the sheep so much. And they'd be, I guess in the grass and in the field,
And it gets
too.
on your body?
Got it.
Oh my.
And I forget. I think Mom said she took this tick off of his.
Well, it said she did.
Well, somebody took a tick off of him anyway, and evidently the head was still in there, or I don't know how it happened.
Right.
But anyway, he got real sick, and back then they didn't have any kind of drugs much for Rocky Mountain fever.
Yeah.
By the time they discovered what it was, he was too far gone.
Now, just from sucking on you, or how does it gets in?
Yeah.
Well, it got
Crawls
in
in
his
your-
Tears his
bloodstream.
head and gets in your bloodstream.
Oh, really?
Got in his bloodstream and caused this Rocky Mountain fever, and they didn't have much.
No antibiotics like that. back then.
That would do anything for it, and he had he had a terrible death.
How long was he sick for?
We don't remember how
I
long
don't
he was sick
remember.
for, but she and I were standing at his bedside when he died. Right down here.
He where the Willow Valley apartments are now.
Well, right there where that nursing home is.
Oh,
right
yeah.
there.
Mhm.
Right there. There's a other place there.
There's another place there that
Where-
was the Allegheny County Infirmary,
Huh.
You
and
walked
that's
in
where
this-
he died. I worked at Ben Franklin's on Virginia Avenue, and of course I was going with your dad since 1948. So we were still going together then, and they called in at the store where I was working, and said, Daddy was real bad.
Well, yeah, that must not have been easy because you were just graduated high school. It's not like he died
Yeah.
before
Well,
you
it was
could
a year
remember.
later, really, 49.
But still, it's
That was November of 49.
something
I
you could
remember
definitely
that.
remember.
Yeah. He
Wow.
was he wasted away from the illness. They tried some experimental drugs on him, I think, and it caused him to waste away. There was a guy I know that come in and sort of worked on him a little bit that night.
Huh.
And he's dead too, Bill Blacker.
What? Now, how about your mother then? How
Mom,
did she pass?
You lived a good many years.
was
later.
89 years old,
Wow.
and she had 9 children, all at home. Had never been in a hospital except to have some teeth extracted. They had to put her to sleep,
Mhm.
and that was like for an afternoon one day, and was never in the hospital before. And she, I noticed when I was down home one time that her skin was yellowy, was getting yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Violet lived there, and she never noticed her because she saw her each day,
All the time.
and it was a gradual thing for her.
Yeah.
And I said, "Did you notice? Mom looks, her skin is yellow," and she said, "I never noticed it." And I said, "Well, you go out on the porch because it was bright out there." I said, "You go out and look and see what you think." And she said, "Yeah, it is." So I said, "You better take her to the doctor." So they took her and they did this test and said she had cancer of the pancreas. And she walked in Washington County Hospital. Walked in. 13 days later, she was dead.
Wow.
That's how fast that type
Well,
of
when
cancer.
it gets in that pancreas, boy, that pancreas, kabam, she
Mm-hmm.
gets you pretty quick.
Wow. So then, Pep, how old were you when Grandma passed away then? You were...
Well, I was, she would, see, well,
I'm trying to think how old I was.
Year she died, do you?
yeah, she died in 86.
86.
Yeah, so I was in my 60s
Okay.
when Grandma died. Yeah.
And she lived a long life too. She would have been...
Oh my God, that's what I say the story was. That's a little bit of a story there that I was, see, whenever I was overseas, I had been given a pretty good job. I was taken over a great big place with all these World War II vehicles that had to be redone and reconditioned. And it was really a great big operation.
Mm-hmm.
And they put me in charge of a big office with a Japanese fellow to take and do all this work. Well, and I got promoted up to the rank of sergeant, just from the time I was 18. And so then they said they wanted me to re-enlist. So right at that time was when they had the cutoff. Anyone that was drafted for the war, that was a cutoff, said everybody that was drafted is going home.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 48. Everybody that was drafted was going, or 47, was going home. So then when they said for everybody that was drafted, and then anyone that had enlisted would either re-enlist or they was going to go too. In other words, they wanted to just make a cutoff and start everybody on a new slate.
Mm-hmm.
Even enlistees, draftees, and everything. We had a lot of guys been through combat, real bad combat and everything at that time. So then I wrote home. They said, if you stay, we're going to make you a sergeant. Put a rocker on your sleeve, and you're going to be promoted if you stay. So I wrote home to Anna and my mother, and I said, they want me to stay here, and they offered me another promotion. And they said, if you stay, we'll give you promotion and give you a bigger job and all that. Well, I was all enthused. So then Anna wrote me a letter back. She said, please come home. Your mother is old, and I want you to help me take care of her. So then I decided, well, then all my buddies were all packing their clothes, and we're all raising, boy, everybody, because everybody was going. They're going to clean the whole darn place out. This was a big time operation. Everybody running around packing and closing and all this stuff, and they were going to even release us before our time was up too. And hell, by the time I saw all them guys going, I thought, oh boy, maybe I better go too. I thought, I see all my buddies leaving. They was all jumping around happy and all that stuff. So then we all decided, well, then the ironic part of the story is that I decided to go home, and that was 1948, and Anna said, stay with me and help take care of Mom. She's old and won't last long. Mom lived till 1986. What was that, about 40?
So you could have stayed a little
40
bit.
some years longer.
Yeah.
Well, if I would have stayed, the Korean War broke out. My outfit was called into the Korean War, and that's when they went
You
parading
might
in.
not come home.
And the North Vietnamese buddy just damn near wiped out my outfit.
Yep.
And I could have been killed in that deal whenever they really laid it on the first Cavalry Division. They really got beat up bad, and I could have got killed right then and there.
Yep.
So
Well,
I guess
thanks,
that
Aunt
letter
Anna.
saved my life.
Thanks to Aunt Anna.
Yeah.
Aunt Anna and Granny, they both saved your life.
Yes, sir. Uh-oh, your light's blinking.
Oh, yep, we're almost out of tape. Okay.